Okay, Dave, you're live.
It's Tuesday, October 12th at 7 o'clock, and the Park Board, Chaska Park Board will come to order. Mary, will you do a roll call for us?
Down.
Here.
Branch.
Present.
Elizabeth.
Present.
Georgianne Keyport. Zach Saresic.
Here.
Danielle Hai.
Here.
Carly Sitch.
Here.
Thomas Massey.
Here.
Jalen Destin.
Here.
Thanks, Mary.
Yep, thank you.
First item for us to address is the agenda, to adopt the agenda. Is there any comments or questions or things that people would like to amend or add? All those in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is adopted. Approve previous minutes. Park Board meeting of September 14th.
I motion to approve the park board meetings.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Receive the council meetings and planning board meetings from August 16th, council meeting from August 13th, or September 13th, and planning meeting from August 11th. Any comments on those minutes?
I have a question on the planning minutes from August 11th. They had referenced the Oak Ridge and Continental properties, and the fact that they were estimating that the properties that were going to be built would average about 25 kids, and that the developer would probably put in a tot lot or some sort of park. And I was just wondering where that would fall in park board preview, if that's just kind of the developer is fulfilling their duty to provide a park, or if park board would step in at some point, or if a park dedication was necessary.
Yeah, so my understanding there is just based on the mix of families coming into that development, they're going above and beyond and including some park amenities within their development. So, yep.
Any other comments or questions on those minutes? Hearing none, we'll receive the minutes listed. First action item of the meeting, park dedication for the Lennar Reserve and Autumn Woods development. Marshall, you want to walk us through the recommendation?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening to those that are joining us online on Zoom. It looks like there's some residents online. We also have Josh Metzer available online, who is with Lennar. If we have any questions from him. And then we've also got some representatives here in person at the event center with us today too. So welcome everybody. What I'm going to do next is just go ahead and share my screen, and then I have a presentation to walk us through Lennar's preliminary plan. All right. So just to create some context here, for those of you that might be watching for the first time, the location of the development we're looking at here is essentially north of Pioneer Trail and on the southwest corner of Audubon and Autumn Woods, and it encompasses the Wagner Woods farm that you can see outlined in that red box there. This particular area in our 2040 comprehensive plan was guided to include a neighborhood park. So that is something that we're looking at as part of the park dedication within this development. And so just kind of going back and starting from the beginning here to create some context for this evening. Back on May 11th of 2021, we as the park board reviewed the initial concept plan that Lennar submitted to the city. And just a reminder, it's really a three-step process that developments go through here at the city. It's a concept plan followed by a preliminary plan and then a final plan. And when they include a park, it goes through the park board, then through to the planning commission, and then ultimately city council across all three of those phases. This particular development is just a little bit over 45 acres in size. The original concept included 102 lots. And then as it relates to park dedication, there's a few options that the city has. And so we can take up to 10% of the land. So in this case, up to 4.55 acres. The city has the option of taking cash in lieu of land. Although in this situation, we're not, because like I said, our 2040 comp plan guides to include a neighborhood park. And then we can also request a combination of land and cash. So just to kind of zoom in a little bit further on the original proposed parkland dedication within the concept here, we took a look at this and essentially came to the conclusion that the area sort of east of lot 52 and over was really not as desirable for park space. So our goal was really to create a contiguous parkland area in the northwest corner. And to do that, we had suggested that we remove a few lots. And in doing that, it was estimated in that northwest corner that would result in about 2.65 acres. And I recall there was some conversation about, is that big enough? Some people wanted us to consider taking all of the land, the full 4.55 acres. So we had good discussion there, and really came to the conclusion that right around 2.65 acres, or maybe a little bit more ideally, would be sufficient for a neighborhood park space. And then it allows us some remaining balance in cash to be able to actually move forward with implementing the amenities into the park at a future date. So ultimately, that was the recommendation, and it went through the process, and the city council approved the concept plan back on May 17th of 2021. And as it relates to the whole development, there were several stipulations and conditions asked of Lennar to come back with their preliminary plan. But as it relates specifically to the park, the conditions were, for the city to receive a minimum of 2.65 acres of park dedication in land with a strong recommendation for additional land, and to receive the balance of park dedication in cash. And then to omit Lennar's proposed parkland dedication starting at the northwest corner of lot 52 and everything east from there, and to omit lots 53, 54, and 55 to achieve the minimum of 2.65 acres, all contiguous on the northwest corner of the site. So that came directly from the city council's resolution that they adopted and approved. So after that, on June 8th, our park board, at our June meeting, we had a work session, and we went out actually toured a few different parks, but we coordinated a visit out to Wagner Woods, just so we could get a better sense of that space and really get a good feel for the size of it. You know, like we had talked about, when you look at a plan on paper and two-dimensional, it's kind of hard to picture how big it is and what is 1 acre or 2 acres feel like. So we had stopped at a couple other parks that were generally right around that 2.5, 3 acres that already exists in the city. So the park board could get a sense of that. And then we came out here, and I don't know, you can kind of chime in, but I think everybody felt like it was a nice spot within the development, relatively flat, and you know, the nice trees, nice mature trees around it will really provide a nice backdrop for that future park. All right. So with that, here is the preliminary plan that Lennar has come back with and submitted into the city. And just kind of to provide some kind of highlights here and some talking points. The significant difference in the overall development is a reduction in lots. So like I said, that original concept plan had 102. And as you can see here, it now includes 86 lots. You can see there's some general reconfiguration that took place in there. But ultimately, what Lennar is proposing in their preliminary plan is a park area in the northwest corner, like we had asked for, resulting in 3.13 acres. So I think that's really landed in a good spot based on what we had asked of Lennar. And that would provide a balance of approximately 1.42 acres that we'll be able to receive in cash. Some other things related to the park and just the connectivity within, and there was some discussion about that, is kind of what's the trail and sidewalk network going to look like. So you see my cursor here. I'll kind of start in the bottom, but there's a trail system here that connects to an existing park on the south end. And it comes along the south here, comes between these couple of homes. Then there's sidewalk, and then there's a trail system that comes through, and then around kind of this natural infiltration basin in the middle, and then on up into the park. And then throughout it, on all of the roads, there will be sidewalks on both sides. So a lot of great trail and sidewalk connectivity that's being proposed within the development. I think it provides some nice loops within and good access into the park. My next bullet point on the timeline and process, I'm just going to save for the next slide, just so I can zoom in a little more. So here you can see a little bit more of a zoomed in depiction of the park area in the northwest corner of the site. So as far as kind of the timeline and the next steps for what actually will go into the park, we want to make sure we involve the existing residents that live in the area, but we also want to make sure we're engaging the new residents that come into the development. So there is a timing element here based on just the overall construction timeline of the development. And in a meeting earlier this week, it's sounding like from Lennar that, you know, it'd probably likely be spring of 2023 before there would be some significant amount of families living in the new development. So again, assuming everything stays on schedule, I anticipate that to be kind of about the time where we would start a planning process. to involve the new families and residents in the development and the existing residents in the area to talk about what we want to go in the park. You know, and then I could see where we could potentially then turn around and look at the construction of the park sometime that fall. So that would be, you know, a good timeline, but we'll just kind of see what happens between now and then. But we definitely want to involve people in that process to help determine what's going to go in the park. And then the other thing that we'll need to factor in is just additional trail connectivity and the access into the park off of Autumn Woods Drive there. And that's really going to be a separate planning process outside of the development and require some further discussion between the city and Jonathan Association along with the residents over there. We did have initial discussion this week, and we feel like, you know, a really good starting point would be able to, if we could figure out how we could get a trail that would connect off of Audubon along the north side of Autumn Woods Drive over there, over to the park would be a great start to get people access into the park safely. So with that, you know, ultimately we'll be seeking a park board recommendation to the city council to read it up there, accept the park dedication of 3.13 acres of land as shown in Lennar's preliminary plan submittal, and receive the remaining balance of 1.42 acres of park dedication in cash. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the park board to see if you have any questions and any discussion you want to have, along with any questions you may want to field from residents or Josh from Lennar.
Marshall, I have a question.
Yep.
What was the conversation with the Jonathan Association? Is this going to be maintained by the city or by them, or do we know yet at this point? Or
Good question. Yep. So if, as you recall, back when we were reviewing the concept plan, that was still a question on the table. This will become part of the Jonathan Association. And if I go back to this slide here, so it'll overall be part of the Jonathan Association. The park will be a city-owned neighborhood park. All of the other outlots within it will be owned by Jonathan Association. The stormwater basins and infiltration basins will be maintained by the city. So there's an arrangement there.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, what is the Jonathan Association? Like, what do they do?
So they are a homeowners association. And so people, residents belong to it. It they provide trail amenities, other park amenities within their system. There's a set of community events, what is ordinances the right word, or covenants, you know, for people to follow. So, yep.
Any other questions?
When does that, the trail access coming off of Autumn Woods into there, when does that get discussed? Is that around the same time as when the actual park will be discussed in terms of what goes in it?
I think I'm hopeful that it'll be done before that, you know, knowing that we almost have a year between, you know, this process and when we'll be looking at the actual park amenities. So I think there's opportunity between now and then to have those discussions with Jonathan and figure out the details on that trail. because that can go in ahead of the park, so it's established when the park is actually built. Ideal.
And you
And
think
the
it-
trail you're talking about that comes in from Audubon, that would not be Jonathan, that would be the city, correct?
We're working with Jonathan on that. Ideally, we would like to see Jonathan own and maintain the trail. The city would ultimately provide them an easement because the city owns the land. So we're working through that.
Anything else?
I was just really pleased that you mentioned that it's being discussed adding access from Audubon that's safe for residents, because I remember that was a really big point of contention for people at the last meeting, that they didn't feel there's a very safe way for people to get there, and it would have been a shame to have such a wonderful green space that people didn't feel they could safely get to, because people will go there. So I'm really, really pleased to hear that. I know that's separate from this actual development, but I'm relieved.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments that you'd like to make?
If I could just get.
Sure.
So I'm Emily Rome Welter, and I'm at 2887 Ironwood Boulevard. And I'm here along with Mark Lundgren, who lives on Autumn Woods Drive, and Kip Dunkelberger, who's on Butternut. Last time I kind of spoke on behalf of about 116 families, and in the interim, this was such a big job, really, because there were park issues and trail issues, but lots of other things to address. And so the neighborhood really stayed cohesive in that process. And then we sort of became a panel to work all the different pieces of the neighborhood. I guess we're just here to say thank you, that this has been a very collaborative, actually, ultimately, I think, great process. No plan is perfect. I'm sure there'll be questions and concerns over time. But in general, really great job by everybody involved. That's the city, the county, Lennar, Jonathan, the park board, the existing neighbors, hours and hours of meetings with the city and all of that. So where this has landed, I think in general, everyone feels very positive about. You can see, if you compare the original drawing with the current drawing, it's dramatically different in ways that we're hopeful will serve the new residents of that neighborhood really well. As well as make it a nice contiguous neighborhood, right? Where everything makes sense. We're connected, not only by street, but by park, trail, association, all of it. The last thing that I would say is on the question of that trail on the end. So on the north side, remembering that there's a city-owned trail that goes along Audubon, and then there's just a short jaunt of it when it turns in on Autumn Woods. Our thought process and what Marshall was referencing, that we've been talking with Jonathan, because we are Jonathan residents, and then in partnership with the city, to try to partner and get a trail that would then go along that north side, because that's kind of a dangerous area to walk, but it's very pretty, and so everyone walks it. And so that it would go along that side, the city would grant that land is the hope, and that's the discussion. Then it sort of would terminate as you come around the corner, it's on that same side, so then it would go up into the park. The last piece to address what you're talking about and what has been in all of our discussions, that deals with the walking path there. There is, though, over here, part of the neighborhood, Julian and some other streets that would still have to cross over. So we're working with the city as this neighborhood gets developed to work on what we've learned are called traffic calming measures, so that as they come around the corner, we might ultimately, I'm saying we, all of us, we, the city of Chaska, would perhaps taper the street there, or there would be striping or a crosswalk or whatever is deemed most appropriate after further study, so that when you get to that side, and you've hopefully followed that trail, there's a safe way up, but there's also a safe way over for anybody crossing over, because that's going to be their closest park. And I know that was all a concern that you had from the beginning. The walkability of that part of the neighborhood to any existing park was not great. And so I think it solves a lot of your problems. But anyway, I just wanted to sort of thank everybody. This has been a good collaborative process. We've encouraged everybody in the neighborhood to continue participating and bring their kind of additional thoughts and concerns. I think my role or our role as a spokesperson for the 116 families probably goes away kind of after tonight, and people will bring their individual thoughts too after that. But we're very pleased and we're thankful. And so I'll step aside, and if there's anything else you guys want to add, but thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Emily?
Yeah, I would just thank you as well, Emily, and everybody that's been involved over there. I think it's just a great example of community engagement and being involved in your community. And, you know, it's multiple agencies coming together to try to do, you know, the best they can, you know, within, you know, their parameters for the good of the community. So.
One last thing, and I know Josh is on the line, so I did just we wanted to acknowledge, again, people will have individualized concerns, but Lennar, and I was fairly critical of Lennar throughout this process, but I do want to say that they really came to the table as a significant partner. And when you look at the two different drawings, really dramatic improvement. So having been very critical of someone, I'm happy to stand back up and say, I think that they did a great job. So wanted to add that in.
It's interesting seeing the big shift from a couple of months ago to now to seeing that drawing. And I would say it's a lot of it has to do with the activism and everybody standing up and collectively using their voices. And that's how community happens. It's awesome.
It's an exciting process that the community really keep together. So it was a nice probably learning process for all of us about how it actually all works. And you're behind me, you're doing that work. So thank you.
Okay, I think without any further questions, we can entertain a motion to request that the city council accept the park dedication of land as shown in the Lennar preliminary plan submitted and received, and the remaining balance of the park dedication in cash. We have such a motion.
I motion to recommend the city council accept the park dedication of 3.13 acres of land and
Everything that you said.
everything that says.
I second.
Second by Kaylee. Motion by Tom. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes.
All right.
You're welcome to stay if you'd like. We're going on to a different subject.
Josh, are you raising your hand?
I am. Just wanted to, mention, it's kind of been echoed here in comments tonight, but Lennar ourselves, we've been working on this since January. We've been working hard, and since about March or April, been working with city staff, and then since May, working with the neighborhood, the watershed, the county. So there's been a lot of work by a lot of parties involved here. And Emily, thank you for your comments, and Kip and Mark as well. We're happy to be at this point in the process by now, and we're looking forward to Planning Commission and City Council and getting on to the next steps. And that's it. Just wanted to say thanks and appreciate everyone's help and hard work.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Moving on to the next action item. Recommend consultant for the facility naming rights and sponsorship. Everybody should have got that report out in the agenda package. Do you want to give a little background on this?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and set this up and provide some background. And kind of following what was in the staff report in the packet. But again, for those that might be just watching this for the first time. So it was back in May of this year. Staff conducted work sessions with both the park board and the city council to introduce the idea of naming rights and sponsorship revenue, and really kind of walked through some local examples to demonstrate that it's already being done in our area. And that included the Health East Sports Center in Woodbury, the TCO Sports Garden in Ramsey County, the Red Baron Arena in Marshall, and the Furniture and Things community center in Elk River. And then had some good discussion about, what these new revenues could help us within our Parks and Recreation department, especially as we think about the Curling and Event Center and the community center, in establishing some sustainability in having some resources that can go towards capital improvement projects and replacing large capital over time as they age. And we had talked about that if we were going to embark on this, that we'd likely want to start with the Curling and Event Center. We felt like it was the facility that's kind of the most ready for something like this. And here at the Curling and Event Center, one of the desires is to be able to expand the Players Lounge within the curling facility. Since the facility opened 5 years ago, we've recognized that that particular space wasn't built to the ideal size. So being able to expand a Players Lounge across the entire backside of the sheets would really allow us to be better hosts for a lot of the national events that take place here. Being able to more effectively and efficiently host bonspiels. And we also do a lot of corporate Learn to Curl events. And so that would be another space that could really help us grow that type of business here in this facility. So I think, a project like that, naming rights and sponsorship revenue can help fund such a project improvement here. And then as we talked about this idea too, we really talked about the benefit of working with a professional consulting firm if we are going to pursue something like this. And so through that discussion with both the park board and the city council, the feedback came back to staff that everyone was in support of it. It was definitely something that we'd like to pursue further. So from there, we developed a request for proposals, and that went out on July 12th of this year. And those proposals were due on July 30th. We ended up receiving 3 proposals. However, shortly thereafter, one of the consultants withdrew. So then at the August 10th park board meeting, I made a recommendation to the board that as a next step, we would interview the 2 consultants that we had to consider, and then also suggested that 2 park board members get appointed to participate in that process as well. So from there, we then reached out to the consultants and lined up interviews, which were conducted on September 7th. So that included myself, Mary Monteith, who works in our Parks and Recreation department as well, along with park board members Dave Downs and Zach Saresig. And on that afternoon, we interviewed Chris Potenza, who represents the Front Burner Sports and Entertainment. And we actually had a chance to meet him during those work sessions and learn a little bit about the industry. So he is a local consultant. And then we also interviewed Kyle Cantor, and he was the representative from the Superlative Group. So included in the park board packets were their proposals, and I had also included kind of a chart that sort of summarized some of the kind of comparisons between the two consulting firms considering. So after the interview process, we did follow up with both consultants and requested some additional information. We asked for three examples and asked for some details within it for us to kind of better understand how they conduct their process and how their fees are paid out and whatnot. So that was helpful. And then after deliberation, we're here tonight to present our recommendation to the park board to give to city council. And so with that, our recommendation is to enter into a service agreement with the Superlative Group. The Superlative Group has 27 years of experience with naming rights. They've delivered over $2.2 billion in revenue for their clients over those 27 years. They've been successful conducting projects across the entire country. They're a consulting firm that has multiple staff on their team, so we think they can provide us adequate resources throughout the process. And I think one thing that really stood out too is they've demonstrated success in the Minnesota area. So has Chris with Front Burner Sports, and I think as we were considering an outside entity, that was something that we were trying to weigh in on, was kind of the level of service they'd be able to provide us. But it's apparent that they've been successful in that. And Kyle, who would be our lead consultant on this project, has been the lead on all of the projects that they've done here in Minnesota. And so he's developed a lot of great relationships here in Minnesota. And just to name those projects that the Superlative Group has worked on in Minnesota, that includes the city of Woodbury. It was formerly the Bielenberg Sports Center, and now it's the Health East Sports Center through their work. They were also the group that worked with the St. Paul Saints to get the CHS field naming rights. They've done work with the Minneapolis Convention Center. And then currently they're retained by the Minnesota Orchestra. And so the Minnesota Orchestra is in the midst of building a 22,000 outdoor seat amphitheater. And so they're working with Superlative Group on some naming rights and sponsorship revenue to help support the build out of that facility. And then also in comparison, I think the Superlative Group has a favorable fee structure. So as it relates to the commission payout, the Superlative Group spreads that 10% commission out annually across the length of the term. So we liked that. And then also the cost of the signage and installation of that, they negotiate with the partnering business. And that's a cost that they have as part of the project. So it's less out-of-pocket money for the city as well. So kind of all those elements combined, we feel that the Superlative Group will be a great fit to assist the city and get us started with looking at what the possibilities are for partnership with the Curling and Event Center. And I noted in the staff report too, and I think it's important to remember as we go throughout this process, that even when we would be working with a consultant, that there will still be an approval process before we would sign any type of agreement with a partnering business for any type of naming rights that would go on the facility. And that would be done through our city council. So with that, I'll turn it over. I don't know if Dave and Zach, you both were part of the process, if you have anything you would like to add or field any type of questions you may have.
A couple of comments that Marshall touched on is one of the things that I didn't think, Superlative would be an ideal candidate is because they're located in Ohio. And that was changed with the amount of work that they've done here in Minneapolis, the amount of time that they spend here. This is one of their areas of focus. So it's not like we're going to struggle to get representation from them to work on the thing. And they seem extremely professional, and they certainly swayed me in the situation. And I think they're absolutely the right partners for us.
I think this was a great project to be a part of. I think it's a testament to the benefit of due diligence, of just the idea that we had this deliberative process of, putting out the RFP, talking to multiple groups, whittling it down, interviewing in person. And I feel like we got a really great opportunity here for the city, specifically to work with a great partner that's going to really help us enhance the facilities that we have. This is a great opportunity for the city, and it was a great project to be a part of. I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Yeah, it's something that I think will bode well for us for the years to come too, that this isn't going to be the last opportunity for us in this regard if this goes well and goes the way we think it should. And there's certainly, besides the naming rights for the building in the future, we're going to have advertising opportunities for some of the in-facility situations too that we can address. So there's some good opportunities here. Any questions or comments on what we did or what we didn't do? Or
I felt similarly to you. I thought Front Burner Sports is local. They're probably going to emerge the front runner. And then when I actually read the breakdown and the proposals, I was very impressed. So I'm glad that the process did go through all the steps that it did. And thank you for interviewing all the groups that were available to. I feel really confident with the recommendation that we'll be making to City Council. And I wasn't sure how I'd come out on that.
Carly, you got anything? Jason? Elizabeth? Jalen? Tom?
Just to clarify, this is for the naming rights, right? Not for the signage around like hockey arenas and stuff. This is just the project for naming rights, correct?
Just for the curling and event center, just the naming of the building itself.
Okay. And then what's the long-term, is there like a long-term relationship that you have or with this, or is this done after phase 3 here?
With the group, you mean?
Meaning, I think I brought it up kind of a couple of meetings ago. If something happens with the company that's sponsoring it, do we then have to reactivate and go through this process again, or maybe after 10 years?
But that was one of the things about this group, the Superlative group, that was good, is they're going to get paid when we get paid. And if the sponsoring name guy goes belly up or does something weird or, something happens, they're done. They're not going to get any more money. It's not, they're getting paid for the full amount no matter what happens. So at that point in time, I think there would be another go round. I don't think it would be necessarily we'd go out for quotes on that, but they would be the likely candidate to come in and help us go forward on that. But they're not contracted for anything, or not going to be contracted for anything other than just this building. They're going to do a citywide survey of all the opportunities and what may lie ahead for us as part of this work. but they're not going to be under contract to do any of that. So we would have another opportunity to use them or use Chris or use somebody else
Okay.
in the future.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe to answer your question too, so let's say we're successful in a naming rights partner and the term is for 15 years, you know, over those 15 years, we're going to develop a good relationship with that partner. And so if we're at a point where they want to renew, you know, we may not need a consultant to necessarily negotiate that. But if they don't want to renew, then we can certainly start a new process. Yep.
Good question, Tom.
Yeah, great question. I had a similar concern just in terms of like, you know, what if the next Enron gets their name in one of our buildings, you know, and 5 years into a 15-year agreement, they're out of business. What happens then? That was one of the benefits, I think, of this group is that we weren't paying out of pocket on the front end, the entire, you know, duration and full value of the deal. It was when we get our payments from whoever the naming rights sponsor is, that's when we pay out the commission on.
Yeah, okay.
So it felt like we didn't have to front all this money.
Yeah, they look at their payments as an annuity, you know, coming, so they're much less susceptible to the ups and downs of the marketplace. They've got a pretty good revenue stream coming in. And most of the contracts that they have written that they showed us were 15 to 25 years. And I think that's what they're going to be looking at here, something in the 20-year range. So that would be advantageous for us as well.
Great.
Hearing no other questions, can we have a motion to for the recommendation outlined in this outline to go to city council?
I'll motion.
Zach, motion.
Second?
Tom, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Passes unanimously. Moving on to the next item. Update to pedestrian and bicycle master plan.
I'll go ahead and take that one as well. So kind of where we're at right now, and that plan is the consultant we're working with, Antonio, is working on the draft, and he's already submitted the first chapter out to the project steering committee for their review and comment. And I think, you know, really his intent is to try to get about a chapter out a week, so that the steering committee can sort of take it one chapter at a time. So that's in progress. And then we've been coordinating the listening sessions that we referred to last month. So last week we had an opportunity to coordinate a listening session with the Carver County Community Development Agency over at the Lake Grace Apartments. And it was pretty neat. We actually had the opportunity to engage both of our Somali community and our Hispanic community. And with the help of staff, we were able to have a couple of language translators there to assist us. Antonio, our consultant, is also fluent in Spanish himself, so that was very helpful. So we had a good discussion and some good feedback there. And then we've got another listening session planned for tomorrow night over at Riverview Terrace to get some additional feedback from our Latino community. And so really the intent of those listening sessions is to make sure that we're making an effort to hearing all the voices in our community to provide feedback into the overall plan. Due to COVID, a lot of our initial community engagement was all online, and through those results, we were able to identify that we were missing some areas of the community with that feedback. So that's the intent of the listening sessions. And then in addition, we'll be working with Antonio to set up a kind of a community open house to be able to present and showcase the initial draft of the plan. So that'll get done sometime, I'm assuming, late October, early November. And that'll be kind of that last call for feedback, so to speak. And then, and then Antonio from there will be basically putting together all the feedback throughout the draft process to create the final plan. And so then what we'll be looking to do is inviting Antonio to our December meeting so he can present the final plan to us, and then we can make a recommendation to City Council from there. So feel good about it. It's been a lot of great community engagement, and I'm excited to kind of see the overall document come together and the recommendations that Antonio's working on.
Has there been anything that really surprised you that you've seen out of his report so far?
Nothing's really jumping out a whole lot. I think one thing that is going to come out that'll be good discussion is, the number one barrier that people are indicating is the winter maintenance. So I think that'll be good to understand, how can we make some changes there. Obviously there's a cost to maintaining trails in the winter. But I think, people do want to get outside and still be able to walk and take their dogs out for a walk and things like that. But some of it I also feel is educational too. Because, our public works, they I think currently plow upwards to 30 miles of our trails. So it's a pretty good amount of mileage that they're maintaining already. But it's sounding like people would like more.
Is that known somewhere? Is it on our website or something? What trails are maintained in the wintertime?
Yeah, we do have a map.
Which winter ones are maintained?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and I like the fact that, the focus throughout is really on all ages and all abilities. The overall goal is ideally to encourage more people to walk and bike in Chaska. And so through a variety of, facility improvements, but then through some of the programming, over time, that's going to be the ultimate goal.
I just want to interject for a second. Thank you so much for coming to the Lake Grace Apartments, because those are my neighbors and they do get underrepresented. And there was so many posters and they were in the languages that all of us spoke. And I felt that I would have gone if I hadn't had prior work commitments, but I'm glad that you guys had translators, because that's a big barrier for them, because they don't feel included. And if you don't know how to speak, if you don't feel confident speaking English, it's really hard to get your voice heard. And those people, they walk to the Southwest bus station. So it's not just for recreation, it's to get to their job. And so that's also something that I want to kind of push and think about when you are doing maintenance, because sometimes by that Lake Grace Apartments, those aren't maintained and people are having to walk in the snow to try to get to their bus station. or walk along 41 to get to the bus station to get to work. So just wanted to throw that out there, but say that I think that that was a really good first step. I hope that it's something that continues to happen, especially because I think apartments are often left out and they often have people of different cultures and languages in them, and they do get like left out in most discussions. So yeah.
Appreciate that feedback. And yeah, I mean, I think it, even, language can be a barrier, and it's hard, but I think as a city, we're taking strides to do the best we can, and we're making great connections with translators to be able to help, and I think, to me, that listening session represented more than just even the biking and walking plan. It represented, just the start to building more trust with other cultures in our community and involving them in our processes, and hopefully that'll just continue to be more welcoming for them over time, and they'll continue to participate in other projects he has going into the future. So
Participate on the park board.
yeah, and put on the park board, exactly.
Moving on to the next item, department happenings.
All right, so a few things to highlight here. So last night had a unique and emotional opportunity at our fire station that celebrated a couple of individuals on our staff at the community center, two part-time lifeguards who acted swiftly back on August 11th at the community center when one of our members had a severe heart attack, and he had passed out, hit his head on some weights, so he was severely bleeding in the head as well. And those two stepped in and initiated CPR right away and got the AED started. And then shortly thereafter, our city's fire department showed up on the scene, and then the Ridgeview ambulance came on and ultimately got him stabilized and then transported over to HCMC. But he ended up surviving, and it was the staff at HCMC said, it was really, in those situations, every second counts, and so really those two part-time staff that initiated that CPR really made a big impact on the outcome of that situation. And so he, along with his wife and daughter, wanted to come in person and thank everybody that was involved. And so that's just kind of a really neat thing to be a part of, because I mean, like the member said, he just got the gift of life back, and his wife had, mentioned how thankful she was that it happened at the community center. If it would have happened at their house, she herself doesn't know CPR, and there would have been delays, and it could have been a different outcome altogether. So it was a really neat thing, and just I wanted to be able to acknowledge our part-time staff, AJ Denke and Alyssa Nelson, for having the courage to take their training and put it into action. And like you say, you go through all this training not ever knowing if you're going to ever have to use it. But for them to do it and have a successful story is pretty awesome. So, I think they're going to become ambassadors for promoting the value of CPR and AED training. And I think it's just a good example for all of us, that that type of training matters, because you never know what situation you're going to be in where you have the ability to help somebody. So that happened last night. Yeah.
High school students?
So AJ's, he's a high school student, and Alyssa is actually a freshman at the University of Minnesota. Yeah.
Awesome.
So.
Does the community center ever offer free community classes for CPR recertification or beginner certification? You have to typically pay someone, not for free.
Offer them, but not free.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah. Yeah, and like we have some of our staff that are able to like recertify our lifeguards and things like that.
How much does it cost to have someone come in and do a training for the, 3 or 4 hours that it takes?
I'm not sure.
Well, I think that we offer a couple different levels, and so those costs are quite different, because there's just kind of like the
the basic first aid. Yep.
Need to get certified. The basic first aid and CPR runs like around, I want to say like $75. It is longer than the class, so it does take a fair amount of time for the class itself. And then we also have the lifeguard training. Those that are already certified, we have the appropriate staff at the highest levels that can train others. So we do have a really good trained staff.
Be interesting. It would be interesting to get community feedback to see if people would be interested in participating in that very beginner level class, seeing what sort of costs it would be to set up like a couple of workshop sessions and seeing what sort of like sponsorship we could get to do something like that. I mean, I was healthcare professional certified for years, and I understand that that's the higher level one, but if it's not an outrageous cost to offer it for the community, piggybacking off of a potentially tragic event like that could be a really nice thing. I don't know if the fire department offers trainings as well or anything like, maybe having interpreters as well. I mean, in some cultures, it's maybe not as accessible to learn first aid, and especially with people being home still much more than we used to. You do have, unfortunately, people, die at home because there are no life saving anybody around.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would fiscally be.
Good idea. I think you just started a subcommittee.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where it sort of seems minimal, or we take it for granted, but I think figuring out how we can make it more accessible for people to get trained. And
is it an offering in the like fall or winter activity guide? Is that even a class that we offer? I guess it is. Okay. I thought I've seen it.
Year. Yeah.
Is it pretty well, is the participation pretty good for this?
From the general public, I would have to say probably not. We don't get very many. A lot of it is youth looking to kind of see if they want to move forward with becoming a lifeguard. But we get a lot of that. But we don't get a lot of just individual folks looking to do it.
Yeah, you're right. You don't need it until you need it.
well, there's a lot of employers that will position it more as like an employee wellness type of offering too, and things like that.
But the Parks and Rec staff, are they all trained in CPR?
Yep.
Full
Yep.
time, yes.
Yep.
So I'm safe here tonight.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, exciting weekend ahead. We've got our Chaska Fire and Ice Community Festival. So we're excited about that. You know, we weren't able to do it the year prior, and coming into this year, you know, typically it's an event we hold in July. We're still kind of uncertain what the situation with COVID was going to be. So we moved it out kind of as far as we thought it would still be safe for some decent weather, which so far it's looking like it's going to be a beautiful weekend. So yeah, it's going to be a fun-filled weekend. Kicking off Thursday night will be the start of the Bonspiel. So there's 48 teams participating in that, and you know, kudos to our curling staff that are managing that portion of it. There has been a handful of teams canceling as we approach the event, you know, teams that were planning on coming from out of state and things like that. So they really had to work hard to backfill those slots, because you really need all 48 teams to kind of keep the bracket going for that tournament. And then things will be kicking off Friday night at 6 o'clock. The food and beverage vendors will be available. Music will start at 7 o'clock. At Friday night, we've got a band called Four on the Floor coming. They're out of Minneapolis. And then fireworks at 8:30 Friday night. And then Saturday is a little bit more robust of a day with activities kicking off at noon. We've got some family fun activities happening in the park. We've got a kids DJ that'll be out in the park. We've got a beanbag tournament that afternoon. We're going to be celebrating the Chaska Fire Department's 150th anniversary. So there's going to be an antique fire truck show. We are slated for some water fights, but kind of depending on the weather, I think that might be a game time decision there. We're going to have a ceremony with bagpipers in the park at 3 o'clock to honor the fire department. And then we've got music kicking off at 4 o'clock with a band called Bad Girlfriends.
Catchy name.
On Saturday night. And then the evening headliner will be the Johnny Home Band. And so they're a very popular band. And then same thing, fireworks at 8:30 Saturday night as well.
They used to play at Valley Fair every summer.
Who's that?
Isn't that the Johnny Home Band that played at Valley
They
Fair every
played it
summer?
everywhere around
Yeah,
here.
they
I used to remember when I was a kid seeing them at like Valley Fair.
play a lot of festivals and yeah.
That Showbiz Pizza.
So yeah, big kudos to all the staff in our department, and there's several other departments. This is a big city team effort to put on this event, and we've got several sponsors that are helping out with the event. Crooked Pint plays a big role throughout the weekend. Shram Brewery is going to be a part of it this year, which is kind of cool. Apparently they are putting together a special 150th kind of firefighter brew. And I think they're releasing that on Thursday night this week. And some of the proceeds going to the fire department's relief fund. But then it'll be available throughout the weekend down here. We're all kind of curious what the name of it's going to be. So,
Is there any scenario in which it permanently moves, the Fire and Ice Festival permanently moves to the fall, depending on how it goes?
I don't
kinda
think
fun.
so. You know, we kind of threw that around a little bit, but I think the Bonspiel part of it, we've got feet because we really surveyed a lot of the teams that participated in the years past to see whether or not they would come out in October. Which we got the sense that they would, and it obviously filled, but it was overwhelmingly more attractive for them to come out in July. They make kind of a vacation out of it. Whereas in October, a lot of teams that are in curling leagues throughout the United States, they're already starting like their winter leagues. And so they might be missing part of their league play to come out here.
Understood. That makes sense.
Yeah. But I think what we'll observe though is just generally the participation with an October type of festival. And I could see where, we may move Fire and Ice back to July, but there could be an opportunity to just come up with another community event in October. So. And then looking ahead a little bit after this weekend, we've got the Trail of Fun Halloween occurring on Friday, October 22nd. That's going to be from 5 to 8 o'clock p.m. out at Athletic Park. And then lastly, just would like to share, some of the projects that Public Works and the Park Maintenance team's working on. The Cortina Woods Neighborhood Playground. If you go over there, you'll see the playground's completely decommissioned. The site's kind of ready for the new playground equipment to be delivered and installed, which I believe is supposed to be happening possibly later this week or next week. So that'll be exciting to see that progress. The recent agreement with Southwest Transit in the use of the upper level parking ramp and the pickleball courts. We just got the pickleball court lines painted up there. So we have 3 courts lined, and staff are just now kind of working on the protocol for the portable nets in the job box we have them stored in up there. But you should see some social media kind of promoting that here in the near future. And then we've got a lot of direct communication with a lot of the pickleball players that play consistently down at Lions Park. Zach, who runs our athletics, is in communication with them to let them know about this new opportunity over at Southwest Transit and encouraging them to go give it a try. And then lastly, over at Clover Ridge Elementary, where the outdoor hockey rink and the skate park is, that's gotten completely resurfaced. So I was out there last night, and the streets crew was out putting down the asphalt. So that's all resurfaced, and then I think the timeline to install the outdoor hockey rink boards is sometime in early November. And then actually last night when I was out there, I intercepted a group of kids that were hanging out on the skate park, like ramps, just watching the crews, and they were all excited. And as I was talking with them, one of them said, "Hey, would it be possible to rearrange how we put the ramps back?" And I said, I think I can make that happen. Let me talk to the crew over at Park Maintenance. And in the meantime, here's my information. And why don't you guys think about drawing something up, and we'll try to connect. And So hopefully they'll follow through on that. I do have their contact information, and I've already talked with Brian, and he's certainly open to that, because I think we got about a week or two that we're going to want to allow that surface to cure before we put the ramps back on. So that's kind of fun.
That's great.
And that's all I got for that.
Park Board Roundtable. Should we start down at this end?
Right. We did drive by the Cortina Woods playground, or lack thereof, and my 4-year-old declared the new layout is dumb. No matter how many times we've explained it has not been installed yet. He is adamant this is awful, but we're really, really excited for that, because that's one that we'll bike to very frequently. So that'll be nice. And then also there is a Cuzzies Fun Run on October 30th. The race director, Doug, is a neighbor of ours, and he's been very vocal in our neighborhood about it, and it looks pretty fun. They released the route the other day, and it looks like it'll be neat. That's all I have.
Really?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay,
What
Jason.
about it?
Just very excited for this weekend. I mean, it's fall time, favorite time of year. Fire and ice moved into fall. I mean, I think this is great. Any reason to go out for a cold beverage and fireworks, you can count me in. So very excited. That's all I have, David.
Zach?
Continue to be inspired and impressed by what a great community this is. I see a lot of great examples of that. And Emily, who was here with the group from the Wagner Farm Project, I had a good fortune of a few weeks ago seeing her, in addition to being a elected spokesperson for her, for her neighborhood. She also does a lot of other things in the community, as you can see, as she was leaving here to go to coach a basketball game, I think she said. And at the Chaska Chan football game that Friday night a few weeks ago, she was there taking tickets. I was out there for a few hours, and I happened to see her. I'm like, you look really familiar. And then of course I saw her like 3 days later at Target. And it's funny because my children attend school at La Academia, and it's the one school in the school district that has kids from all the communities in the school district, not just Chaska, but Chanhassen and Carver and Victoria and the townships. And I think of our community centers the same way. I constantly run into people there from not just in Chaska, but all over the surrounding communities. And this really is a nice hub of community and connection for not just Chaska, but the surrounding areas. I continue to see that on a regular basis. And we were talking about the lifeguards earlier. I see lifeguards there Friday night, because I take my kids swimming there every Friday night, and I see several of them back the next morning doing swimming lessons. I saw one of them at the homecoming parade in a float for the theater department at Chaska High School, and it's just, I continue to see such great things out in the community that it's another, just continues to reinforce why I live here and raise my family here. I appreciate it. So, and just a side note too, the staff working the front desk at the community center just continues to be just awesome. I know a lot of them are full-time people that have kind of been pivoted over because of COVID and whatnot, but like seeing Aaron there constantly and Zach and everybody up there, it's just great. The full-time staff and the part-time staff, it's just a lot of fun. And you see them, they recognize everybody, and everybody knows everybody. And I had the chance to do some personal training with Kari from the community center staff, and walking with her through the community center is difficult because everybody knows her. She knows everybody. She knows everybody by their first name. And hey, how's that thing going that I showed you 6 months ago? It's just it's wonderful. It continues to reinforce what a great community this is and how fortunate we are. So that's all I got.
Elizabeth?
I attended the first park run for Chaska a month ago. I saw Marshall there, and I was unaware the first time that I went. Yes, we had a good representation of the park board, but a few of you were missing.
Just you and Tom and Marshall?
Yeah, just Tom Marshall and myself. I was unaware that it was every single Saturday. So I thought it was just kind of once a year, but it's every Saturday. And I was impressed with how organized the group was, and that there's a social aspect too, that you can go down to the Red Bench Bakery afterwards, and kind of a great way for people to meet other people if you're like kind of older, because young kids meet through sports and stuff, but if you're new to the community, and that would be a great thing to do. And there was tons of people walking if you don't want to run. And I just thought that everyone was so kind and courteous, and I left there feeling so great, because you run out and back, and then on your way back, there was some really impressive older people that were like really like fast and way ahead of me. So they're already coming back and I'm still going out. And they were like, keep it up, keep it up. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. So it was just really fun. And I felt left like leaving feeling great. And so I encourage everyone to try it. If you don't want to run, you can walk. And there's, you can volunteer too, because I think you get points for volunteering, and it's a whole network. They do it all over the United States and in other countries too. So it's really cool. So that's the park run.
Like what the volunteer run director had said, because it kind of, I never thought of it this way, but he said, if you think about all of the park runs occurring across the world and the amount of participants, I mean, it's in the thousands. And so it's like, he said, it's one of the largest sporting events collectively every week that takes place, which I hadn't thought of it that way. It was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's neat. And then the other thing I just want to mention, if you have the opportunity to go by the loop, formerly known as the Chaska Par 30, they've seeded the greens, and it just, you can see it taking shape, and it looks really awesome. I was wondering if it was ever going to happen. All summer, all I saw was big dump trucks moving a lot of dirt around, but it's starting to take shape, and it looks really awesome. I'm excited. So if you haven't driven past, check it out.
Jalen?
I just wanted to shout out the Chaska varsity football team. They are 6-0, I believe, and ranked top 10 in the state. And I have a couple of friends on that team, so I've been enjoying watching them play. I've been to every home game, so that's all I got.
Cool. Tom, farewell speech?
Yeah, I was at the park run too, and there was she must have been in her 80s, but she had done like more than 100 of these things. She had the shirt on for 100. You get the points for volunteering and racing and stuff, but I didn't pass her until the way back, so she was pretty fast. It's impressive. But yeah, this is my last meeting. I just want to say thanks. It's been really good experience. And I mean, I know I haven't been on it for a long time, but it's been great to just feel plugged into the community and start hearing stuff about what's going on. So it's been a good time.
Sorry to see you go. I'm glad you got your promotion, but
yeah,
we'll miss you.
Yeah. Good luck to you and your family.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
luck.
Thank you very much.
We're on YouTube also, so. If you want to
Yeah. On Zoom if you want.
I went over and voted today. I don't know if everybody's voted, but the early voting is available over at the courthouse or the county building.
Referendum.
Yes. Yep.
Now through November 2nd.
Now through November 2nd. Everybody should get out and vote. And I did want to ask, not because it does Tom, but we've had another vacancy on the board for some time. Do you know if there's any active recruiting out there now to be able to fill that slot?
About a month ago, we received one application, but that's been it so far. So we have notified that individual that, hang tight. We kind of want to, get some more interest before we kind of conduct a process with the city council. So I think at this point of the year, more than likely, we'll probably just fold it into next year's kind of typical process, knowing that, city council's got quite a few meetings ahead of them where they're going to have work sessions and whatnot already for approving the budget and whatnot.
Yeah, and it may be better to recruit when the other boards are recruiting at the same time because there'll be more activity. And I know when I came on board, the park board, they were asking me if I wanted to participate in a different board or that. So maybe we can steal somebody that's looking for another board in the first of the year.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a citywide push across all the commissions at the beginning of the year. So
Okay. That's all I've got. Mary, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do not.
Anything else, Marshall? Last item. Adjourn the meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Zach? Second?
Second.
Second, Elizabeth? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Park board meeting's adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.